Hey everyone, so I did my math word problems on 5th grade subject word problems, so I'll go ahead and begin with my real world data set word problem. It says Beth's Tuesday schedule is like Monday's, except ballet class is half as long and jazz class is twice as long. Explain why her total time is the same. So that's number one. Here, my first student, Jessica, she completed the problem and said that Beth's total time is the same because if you take half away from 2.5, then it's just 1 1/4. And if you add 1 1/4 to 1 1/4, then it's 2.5. So really, they're just switching the numbers around, but they're still the same number, what she meant total time. So that was a good answer, I thought, in the way she explained herself. My second student, Roland, and now this is an adult student that I used, and this was his answer. 2.5 equals 2.30, and 1 1/4 equals 1.15, 1 hour and 15 minutes. And over here on Tuesday, half the time is 1.15 and twice the amount of time is 2.30. So jazz and ballet equals the same hours sum. So his answer was not as in depth as the 5th grader's answer, but it was still the right answer. So my reflection for problem number 1 was that this problem was a little problematic in the beginning for both of the students because they were both easily confused by 1 1/4 hours being 1 hour and 15 minutes. Both students first assumed that 1 1/4 hours was 1.25 hours, 1 hour and 15 minutes. A lot of students confuse that because they automatically see 1/4 and they think that it's a quarter, which is 0.25. But when you're thinking of hours, a quarter of an hour is really only 15 minutes. So that was a little confusing, but it was still understanding for both students to have been confused by that. Now this problem number 2 is fractions. A basketball trophy is 8 3/16 inches tall. A soccer trophy is 7 5/8 inches tall. How much shorter is the soccer trophy than the basketball trophy? Now, Jessica here first wrote down 8 3/16, take away 7 5/8, in which she changed 5/8 to 10/16. And then here simplified, borrowed from the whole number 8 and made it into 19/16, and was able to subtract it and was able to come up with the answer 9/16. As you can see, Roland, the adult student, didn't take that many steps, but he still came to the same answer. Now, the reflection for this is that both students, when they had to borrow from the whole number in order to subtract 3/16 from 10/16, they didn't borrow correctly at first. The first student solved it by 13/16 minus 10/16 and came up with the answer 3/16. Instead of making 13/16 as it should have been 19/16. The other student simplified 19/16 minus 10/16 equals 9/16, which is the right answer, but was confused and continued to simplify that into 3/4, which is incorrect. So they did not simplify correctly until I had to correct them of their work. All right, now for number 3, money. Joe earns $9 per hour working in a shoe store. One week he worked 12.5 hours. Another week he worked 15 hours. How much did Joe earn for both weeks? This was pretty easy for both of the students. They realized they just had to add up the total amount of hours and then multiply it by the rate. So Jessica here, the 5th grade student, she added up 15 plus 12.5 and then multiplied it by 9, which is a simpler way of doing it. And then Roland here, the adult student, he did it in a couple more steps. He multiplied first 12.5 times 9 and then 15 times 9 and then added those together and got the answer of 247.5. So again, both students came to the same answer, but they just solved it differently. Both students accurately completed this problem. So question number 4 is a little science link. The molecule hematite is a part of rust. About 0.7 of hematite is iron. How much iron is in 15 grams of hematite? I think I'm saying that correctly. So here Jessica multiplied 15 times 0.7 to get the answer of 10.5, and Roland did the same thing. Both students accurately completed the problem because they needed to find how many times 0.7 went into 15 grams. So last problem here is area. 5th grade students need to work on a little geometry. So the problem says a sculptor is making a giant aluminum triangle. The triangle will balance on one point and its 32-foot base will be parallel to the ground. If the sculpture is 14 feet tall, how many square feet of aluminum is needed for the triangle? So here I gave the student the formula in case they might have not known it or didn't learn it yet when I completed this presentation. But both students were able to use the formula to solve the problem. Here is Jessica's work, a lot of work it took. She first wrote here the formula and then plugged in the numbers, and then this is her work and how she got 224. As you can see, Roland, the adult student, did not show as much work. Seems like most of the work was done mentally. He did not divide 32 divided by 1/2, multiplied by 1/2, which is just dividing by 2. He did that in mental math, and then here he wrote out 16 times 14, which is the base times height, and came up with the answer 224. So this problem was hard for the student number 1, Jessica, to plug in the numbers into the triangle formula. She kind of just started doing it mentally till I asked her to use the formula. Student number 2, Roland, did not have difficulty. He just kind of wrote it out without using the formula to begin with. So to end the reflection for this word problem analysis, what surprised me about what my students did is that both my students struggled with problem number 1, which is not really that surprising because my students, many students have that same problem in changing 1/4 as an hour is actually 15 minutes, and a lot of students, or a lot of people actually, even adults, tend to automatically think that 1/4 of anything is 0.25. So that was a little surprising, not very much surprising. I was surprised though with the way that both students borrowed from the whole number in the fraction problem. I didn't have to explain this to the students. A lot of students do have difficulty, but both my students did not. So that surprised me in a good way. And also both students completed their work in a timely manner. That was very surprising. It didn't take them a long time. They both completed the work efficiently. So that's the end of my presentation. It was really interesting seeing the comparison of student versus adult, 5th grade student versus the adult student that I chose to do my word problems. It was a really interesting experience seeing these word problems actually being solved. Hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.